Most of what we call management consists of making it difficult for people to get their work done. Peter Drucker. Hey, DZ Tribe, Josh Thomas. Glad to have you. Make sure that you don't miss another episode. I'd love to have you follow and subscribe on Apple or Spotify. Also, if you're looking to better understand how you get stuff done, head on over to dozonedna.com and take our proprietary personality profile assessment built specifically for busy entrepreneurs. It's going to show you how to build your world around you for optimal performance. Once again, that's dozonedna.com. Today's guest is George Liu. George moved to the U.S. at age 10 without speaking any English, but he overcame adversity and found success through fitness. George is now the founder and CEO of Gym Pillars, a marketing agency that helps micro gyms scale without sacrificing their pockets. George, welcome to the Do Zone. Say what's up to the tribe or the Tibe, and tell us something you believe is the key to getting stuff done that most people wouldn't think of.
Yeah, for sure, man. Really appreciate you having me, man. And what's going on, tribe? It's a pleasure to be on the show. For me, I think what is really helpful and important when it comes to getting things done, right? It's like being productive overall. It's I don't think a lot of people talk about it too often. However, it's this might be a completely out of the blue or a curveball, but it's emotional cleansing, which is a topic I don't think a lot of people talk about, right? Because I think oftentimes when it comes to the topic of productivity, it's productivity. It's only as valuable as the action that you take, right? And actions typically stem from the decisions you make towards which direction you want to take with things, right? So effectiveness, when it comes to the kind of action you take, is very important, right? But how do we determine whether something is effective or not? That's something we don't really think about as much, right? And that comes from decision making. And when it comes to decision making itself, I don't think a lot of people ever backtrack to see and engage how do we make decisions, right? It's like we're often taught as entrepreneurs and people who are eager to get shit done to really focus on the data, and come from logic, which is true in itself. But the other piece is whether we like it or not, unless you're a sociopath, we have emotions, we have feelings, right? So I think especially for us as men being entrepreneurs, that's a topic that I don't think we ever dive as deeply into. When we have a process when it comes to clearing up our feelings, clearing up our emotions, it allows us to actually make better decisions, which will allow for more action, massive action, taking in the direction that you believe is most effective. So that's just my belief.
George, I got to tell you, I wasn't expecting that answer.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Yeah. I mean, he says, like, I don't know, man. You asked me the question, so I gave you the answer.
Yeah,
that's extremely profound. And so let's go back to this term that you're using here, emotional cleansing. And your logic tree was solid on that by saying, okay, if you really want to be productivity, here's what you said. Productivity is only as valuable as the actions that you take. And actions that you take stem from decisions that you make. And that's how you determine effectiveness, by what you think is important. And that comes from the decisions that you make. And, you know, I've had, I'm not sure what episode this is now that we've done, but I'm north of 50 for sure. And I don't know that I've drawn a real clear line of distinction between you being productive and how you're feeling emotionally about the decisions that you're making. So, man, if we could you just tell me a little bit more about that? Because even though it was just like this divine inspiration that just hit you right here, I think there's more back there. So I want to hear more. Keep going.
For sure, brother. Yeah. Which avenue do you want me to dive deeper into? Just so when it comes to emotions and decisions,
give me a minute to come up with what I want to say here.
Yeah.
So specifically, emotional cleansing is as far as getting your feelings right in order to get into the do zone, if you will, in order to become a productive person, going and cleaning up those emotions. What are some of the emotions that you feel are really gunking up our gears that are keeping us from being more productive?
Oh, that's a great question, man. So when it comes to feelings, at least this is my belief. We all human beings, we're actually more so feeling beings that think versus thinking beings that feel, right? Because if you just look into our psychology and heuristics in terms of how we make rapid decisions, right? It's like we're much more irrational than we would think we are. So a big chunk of it is influenced by our feelings. And the way I have learned, and it may change in time to understand feelings, is that I almost see it as kind of like a gas tank within each one of us that we have of different categories of feelings and emotions. For me, there are three really distinct ones that have really, I guess, held me back, especially when it comes to my process. One of them is guilt, right? Another one is fear. Naturally, that's something that we're all familiar with, and another one's anger, right? And I think as entrepreneurs, oftentimes we either place so much pressure on ourselves, or we let external circumstances or let other people or whatever it may be place additional pressure on us, right? So when it comes to the
Why do we
specific,
why do we do that though? Why do we place so much pressure on ourselves? So much so that it sometimes cripples us and we're not able to do things. What does that have to do with guilt, fear, and anger? Why do we do that?
that's a great question, man. It's when it comes to the expectation we place on ourselves, I think oftentimes it just comes from our own internal needs, right? So like us as human beings, whether we go on the path of productivity and build a business, or let's say like dive into sports or become an elite athlete or what it may be, it depends on which place it's coming from, right? I think oftentimes, like when it comes to our internal needs as human beings, we have these fundamental wants that we have, right? Like this sense of wanting approval from other people, or wanting approval from ourselves, which is why we chase success, right? Or the sense of wanting of control, wanting to be able to control our environment, control our world, control our fate, our destiny, right? It's like our path, if you will. Or the sense of wanting of security, wanting to feel safe, wanting to feel protected, right? It's like wanting to feel like we have the resources for whatever it is we want to do, right? So these internal needs are oftentimes like those are the needs we're really looking to fill. So when we actually go on this path of actually building a business, sometimes we just forget. Sometimes we actually forget to ultimately what we're all really chasing is the sense of our feeling or state of being, right? It's like so we just forget when we actually go off on this path of building a business, becoming as productive as can be. When we don't have that connection in terms of that's the need that we're looking to fill, we just go around chasing endlessly, right? And when we do, sometimes like I don't know about you, but for me, I've definitely gone on paths where I've hit a specific milestone or a goal, and then for me to just feel a little bit empty on the inside, you know,
Mm.
until I jump into the next one, right?
Kind of like
I think all
you
of those
thought
things are connected.
it's kind of like you thought you wanted this reward, and then you got the reward and you realized, oh, well, that was not nearly as fulfilling as I expected it to be. Now what is my purpose?
Exactly. Yeah, because we glamorize things, right? It's like and for us, like when we chase after these goals in honor of fulfilling our deep wants as human beings, sometimes we get frustrated. You know, sometimes like we get frustrated when things aren't going our way. It's like God, why is this working? Right. So and that's when anger flares out, right? Or we're scared we might not be able to get what we want, because if we don't get what we want in business, if we don't hit a revenue target, if we don't build the team that we want, that means something about us, right? Or if we're not being as productive as it can be, sometimes it makes us feel as though it's like, oh well, I don't I'm not successful, like I don't deserve this, or it's like we judge ourselves, right? So it's all tied together, you know. So
Fear specifically is one of the main drivers of almost every human emotion
yes.
to a certain extent. I mean, I don't know how many people here have seen the movie Inside Out, but it's got these. It's an animated Pixar movie, and it's you're inside this little girl's head, and she's got all of these different emotions, and they take turns kind of controlling her body as she's growing up, and
Mm.
um, fear is a strong one. Joy, sadness, and anger. It was like I think there's like 4 or 5 of them,
Mhm.
and they all each take turns, kind of directing her through different parts of her life, and joy is actually the first emotion. Like as soon as she's born, joy is there, right? And then all of a sudden sadness shows up and she's like, oh, I don't like you.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the movie, I don't want to give it away, it's a really great movie, but basically there's a conflict between joy and sadness throughout the entire movie, where joy's just like, no, we need to be happy all the time, right? And there comes this moment where it's like, no, it's okay. It's important for us to feel sadness so that we can appreciate that joy. Right.
100%, man. Yeah.
And so each of these feelings has some kind of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And fear is a very powerful emotion because fear is tied to survival.
Yes.
Protection.
Mm-hmm.
We need to not get mauled by saber-toothed tigers. And our brains have not, I've said this many times, our brains have not received that firmware upgrade to let us know, hey, dude, there are no longer saber-toothed tiger threats out there. And so we're constantly scanning the horizon like, where are they at?
Mm-hmm.
I know they're out there, man. Okay, well, I don't see any right now. And so when you don't see that imminent threat, the fear emotion still kicks in. Your brain's fight or flight mechanism still kicks in, and it's looking for the next thing. And if it's not death, it's pain.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no pain, it's discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And then we stay in the comfort zone and we don't get anything done because we're too afraid of being uncomfortable.
True.
Damn our bodies, George.
Damn. that was good. Like that was actually, yeah, it's
well, I had to, you built this big ladder at the beginning. I'm like, shit, dude, I got to follow up with that.
Yeah, no, that was powerful, man. Yeah, no, I love that. It's like, no, that's a good point. I've never thought about it like from death and then pain and then thereby discomfort, right? It's like being something that is just outside of our reach and that we're terrified of oftentimes. So, yeah.
And I want to get into your business here in a minute, but I think you more than anybody else would have a great perspective because you're in the fitness industry.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies, our brains are kind of hardwired in contra to having a great body.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of like, no, man, we need to store this fat just in case we never eat again. Oh,
100%.
There's food in front of us. Let's just grab all of it just in case there's not any more.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And those are the two reasons that most people are out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have you seen any kind of observations about that in the different clients that you've worked with?
Yeah, it's so we actually support gym owners and health and fitness professionals specifically, but it's like we definitely seen how it plays out, and because we just oversee a lot of things, right? It's like because when it comes to getting in shape and diving into health and fitness and attaining the body that you want, oftentimes it's people have a tendency to think it's just like building the habits, right? But ultimately, like what people really are aspiring to do is shift their identities, shift how they see themselves, right? It's like because no one's just trying to like let me work out 3 days a week, or let me just like get on this meal plan or this diet, right? What we see is like when it comes to just people in general, and I think we can all relate to this, is that we want to see ourselves in a different light. We want to feel something differently about us, right? It's like, and oftentimes like we do get our own way because like we do have certain chips that are stacked against us, right? Like biologically, right? This wanting of more all the time, right? Like more food, more portions, more flavors, more taste, right? It's like, and all those things. So we do see that, and people oftentimes get in their own way when they're not able to become more aware of that, right? It's like, but yeah, I see one of the things I see is that it's emotions and feelings are also tied around getting in shape as well and attaining the body that person wants, right? Because oftentimes, like the most common quote unquote threat, if you will, when it comes to a person's health and fitness journey is this feeling of guilt, right? It's like, how often does a person just follow a plan or follow a workout routine or work with a trainer or go to the gym and they say they're going to do certain things and then they go at it and they do stay on for a long time, but then out of nowhere they like maybe have one bad day or they just drop off like one workout or they miss one meal that was supposed to be planned, right? But then that messes up their entire routine because they get flustered, they're like, oh shit, well I didn't mean to do that, so I mean I'll start tomorrow, and that tomorrow becomes next week. Right. And then they fall off forever. Right.
And then two pizzas and, a bucket of ice cream. Like, screw it. It doesn't even matter. The whole world's going to hell.
Yes. that's a slippery slope of guilt, right? It's like we just beat ourselves up. So
That's one of the reasons that there's a book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The Four Agreements,
mm,
and it's one of the reasons that these four agreements are so powerful. And the four agreements they're very simple.
mhm.
The first one is be impeccable with your word.
Yep.
The second one is don't take anything personal. The third one is don't make assumptions. And then the final one is always do your best. And all four of these are very important, but always do your best is kind of like the cleanup agreement.
Mm.
It's, you're on this diet, you're on this goal. I'm currently on a mission. Depending on when this is out, I mean, it's going to be a while. I'm currently on a mission to empirically prove that my abs exist. I believe that I could feel them, but I can't see them. And I've never seen them in my life. And so one day I'm going to actually see them and be like, yep, there they are. Check,
Yeah.
and then I'm probably going to like chill out and have a cheeseburger or something, but,
Mm.
but I'm on a mission. And there's some times along this mission where I screw up or we got some friends that are going out and they want to have a couple of drinks. I'm like, I want a couple of drinks, or man, I've been going hard for like 6 weeks. I really, really love ice cream. So I'm going to have some ice cream, man, but the always do your best part is like, all right, I totally blew it yesterday. But that doesn't mean that I have to blow it today. Because every day that I wake up, I get to do my best. Yesterday didn't work out. Okay, always do your best. Get right back up there and do it again, and you're going to be okay.
Yes.
And guilt is strong. So going back to review these three main emotions that have kind of gunked up your gears. You mentioned fear, anger, and guilt, and gosh, I could imagine just pretty much everybody that's listening to us right now has struggled with that in some way. I'd love to hear some thoughts about this, and I want to come back to you on it. But you got a great head of hair there. I want to crack open the skull, get in there, and see how the brain works. And we're going to do some Do-So diagnostic. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, excellent. So 5 quick questions, rapid fire. First thing that comes to mind. Number 1, what's one thing you do, George, that keeps you focused on your goals?
Meditation.
Nice. And how do you get back on track though when you lose that focus?
Kind of like what you mentioned earlier, right? So just forgiving myself for being a human, right? It's like that I know it's inevitable for me to make mistakes. It's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when, right? It's like, so when I do fall off, or sometimes when I intentionally, like I'm not too rigid with myself, right? It's like, for me, I understand that meditation is a tool. However, it's not meant to be a cage, if you will, in which I've also had my previous encounters of just like my habits just making me feel as though I'm more so in prison versus focused, right? When I fall off, I just know that whenever I take one step off the path towards who I want to be, I'm always one step right back towards who I want to be, right? It's like at any given time, you can take one step and you're right back on the path that you want to be on. So
cool.
Yeah.
Who's your support group and how do they keep you accountable?
So I'm part of a community with a lot of other agency owners, in which I'm actually a head coach there as well, which is I'm a mindset coach there. That's one of my support groups. I have a girlfriend who's extremely loving. She calls me out on my bullshit. It's like pretty relentlessly. I have 2 of my really good friends that I'm also in business with. My entire team. I have my family and close friends. There's a men's group that I'm part of as well. We meet every Tuesday, just a group of entrepreneurs where we dive into just like deep work on ourselves. I'd say those are the key components.
Wow. Got quite a bit of support there, man. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And so how do you approach a difficult project that you're not sure how to complete?
Oh, we're kind of in that zone right now, huh? So, because yeah, in business right now, it's recently the past couple of months has been kind of a wild ride for us. We've yeah, just long story short, this was actually a quote that I was looking up because I remember it had always stuck with me. I think Archbishop Desmond Tutu said there's only one way to eat an elephant, which is one bite at a time, right? So no matter how daunting, how overwhelming, how big of a project, how big of a vision that you're looking to bring into life, it just begins with you just doing one thing at a time, right? It's like and being patient with yourself in that process. Um, However, as long as you're taking action, you're moving forward. Give yourself a break. Just do all that you can.
Last question. What's the number one pro tip you would give to someone looking to get more stuff done in less time?
It's easier said than done, but do less to do more. I think oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we have a tendency to think that the more hours we work, the better the outcome will be. However, that's not necessarily always the case, right? It's like when I was first starting off, especially like I was just like bustling my way through everything. However, when you give yourself a time to breathe, take a step back, and at any given time have a pulse on where you are and where you want to be and how you're tracking, that's much more helpful because otherwise we'll end up in a position where we're doing so much, but it leads to nothing because we're just focused on climbing the ladder, but we don't take a second to notice that the ladder is actually being placed against the wrong building, if you will, right? Or we might not even be in the right town, right? Or there might be an elevator. Hell, it's like that would probably be much faster. So, yeah,
Dude, like we are going deep with the analogies today. I love it.
yeah.
So coming back a little bit because I kind of teased this a minute ago. Fear, guilt, anger. You came to the United States when you were 10 years old from Japan. You didn't speak a word of English. And it's not like there's any like transferable letters that you can recognize either. It's just like there's like a tree and the little square thing with the dojo. And like I have no idea what Japanese, like I have no concept of that at all. And your parents did not name you George.
No.
what is your official Japanese name?
My Japanese name is Liu Tetsu, and then my Chinese name is Liu Zhe. Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. And so you have a Japanese name and a Chinese name, and then you came to the U.S. and somebody said, "Well, you probably should come up with an American name too." And so why did you decide on George?
It was actually my stepdad at the time. It was I remember we were in the car. There's a funny story around it. It was yeah, he was like, you guys, and when he said you guys, it was me and my sister, I believe, that were in the car. He was like, you guys should get an American name just because that'll make it easier for kids to call your name by. Otherwise, it's hard to pronounce, right? It's like, and my mom was like translating that over to us, and we're like, yeah, okay. And I was in fourth grade at the time. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And my homework assignment back then, I grew up East Coast, around the Boston area, but my homework assignment back then was actually opening up a Time magazine, actually reading through this. I think it was we were learning about history or something like that, and then reading through this article and answering the 4 questions on the Time magazine. And I remember distinctly it was I think around maybe like Revolutionary War or something like that. But there was one page where there was like a whole grid of U.S. presidents, right? So it's beginning with George Washington, and I was like, yeah, well, let's pick a name. I was like, and I saw the first dude, and I was like, let's do that one. so I looked at George Washington, I picked him, I was like, yeah, let's George.
I'm gonna go with George. It's a good,
strong name. Like in China, right? In China,
good patriotic American name.
100%. Yeah, I was like, yeah, let's do George. And then stuck. So
yeah, that's awesome. There's several presidents named George, actually. So yeah, you probably picked one of the most American names that there are. That's cool. And so kind of coming back to that experience where you were talking about the things that cripple us as entrepreneurs, fear, guilt, anger. How challenging was it to have this whiplash of a different culture that you're exposed to, a language barrier that could not possibly be higher, Talk to me about how you navigated through that just to get back to zero, where somebody else, just being able to communicate, you had this, you definitely had to move the ladder to a different wall at that point.
Yes.
Talk to me about how you overcame that.
The short, funny version is TV.
Short, funny version. Yeah, that's the one. Not the long and sad dramatic one. That'll be for the Do Zone, part 2, like outtakes.
Right. Well, the short, funny version is actually TV. It was actually super helpful. Whereas because I think when it comes to learning, right, it's like when our emotions are heightened, we learn more. The reason as to why we didn't learn very well when we were in school is because we were bored out of our minds. Like we just didn't care, right? But if we were learning about something we're extremely passionate about, we learn much faster. So for me, like tactically, that was actually TV. But just give a sneak peek version of I guess what would be the long version would be it was really hard. It was because when all of a sudden like the world that you're used to experience turns completely 180, and you as a kid you don't know why that's the case. Along with not being able to speak the language, you just feel very different. You feel like left out. It's like you feel like an outsider at any given time. And the pain of isolation is very real, right? It's like, especially when you're a kid, when all you wanted was just a group of friends that's got your back, right? It's like that sense of belonging, and we still do, even as adults. But it was really hard. It was yeah, there was definitely a good chunk of fear, the fear of being left out, fear of not being accepted, like all those things that was frustrating for sure. That actually was what got me a good chunk of the time to just like escape through just like television, right? It's like just like watch TV and just like get my mind off of things, or gaming, right? It's like but overall, when you're a kid, when you're younger, it's language does come more naturally to you, thankfully. So I was able to pick it up pretty fast. But those two components, I would say.
Nice. And so one of those outlets was fitness. And talk to me how you found that journey, and how that kind of translated into what you're doing now.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, man. It's because for me, it's like I wasn't always into fitness. I was growing up, like I was that kid that was eating Doritos and drinking Coca-Cola for dinner, and then my mom would yell at me because I was like, it was like 7:30 p.m. and I was still playing video games and I haven't eaten any food. It's like so that wasn't always me. However, what really did stick with me throughout my upbringing was the sense of this feeling of not being good enough, right? It's like that was always present because I always felt like I was left out, right? It's like I always felt like an outsider, and kids really treated me differently because when I moved to the U.S., I looked different, I sounded different, right? Like what I ate for lunch was different. You could smell it. It's so that carried through all the way up until high school, and I remember it was after I graduated high school, it was a decision that came out of pain, that came out of like, hey, enough is enough, like because I had gotten accepted into my college, which is UMass Amherst, and I was like, I want to. I remember this distinct moment where I had a moment where I looked in the mirror. And I just looked myself in the mirror. I was like, man, I just don't like you. No, I just don't like you. And that was such a stark realization for me. I was like, all right, fuck this. I'm just gonna do something to change something about myself that I don't like. And it started off with my body because I was like 134 pounds, like soaking wet at the time. It's like, let's see what we can do about this. So that's when I decided to start working out, going into that summer, right before college.
You said something important there. You looked at yourself in the mirror at one point and you said, man, I just don't like you.
Yes.
And yeah, I just want to let that breathe for a moment, because I've had that moment too. It may or may not have something to do with your physical appearance. And, just because you're looking at who you are physically, it may not necessarily mean you don't like yourself physically, but there's something about yourself that you don't like. And just to add a little bit of fuel to that fire, I realized not too long ago, I lived a big portion of my life without realizing this, that I did not like myself at all.
Mm,
and it would translate in various different ways. I just wasn't paying attention until it got brought to my attention.
mm,
And the way that it manifested itself in me was I really hated being alone.
mm,
Like, just didn't like it. Always felt like, man, I'm missing out. I should be hanging out. I wonder what, other people are doing right now. And I spent a bunch of time alone. And I would always try to medicate myself with other people, even if those other people, company was not necessarily in my best interest. And what I was eventually, through some therapy and some meditation, I was able to realize was I actually just didn't like myself. And so obviously I didn't want to sit around and hang out with me because I hated me. And so I was trying to escape that by going and being around other people.
mhm,
And so, you found the gym, you found fitness, like, no, you know what? I'm going to change this. I don't like what I see. I'm going to change it.
mhm,
And as soon as you said that, I resonated with it because I saw it in a different way. I don't like that. I'm going to change it. I
mhm,
have to find a way to like myself because I can't get rid of me.
mhm.
And, for anybody that's listening right now, I hope that has had some kind of impact on you right now. And I hope that has resonated with you because I would imagine us as human beings, George, all of us have stood in front of some version of a mirror and we've said some version of what you just said.
100%, dude. I got chills hearing that. That's extremely powerful because at the end of the day, it's like all you have is you, right? It's like, and even when it comes to, I think sometimes we don't put enough, we don't put as much awareness on it as much as we could, right? Because even when you really think about it, it's everything happens in between your ears, everything. Like
Mm,
all of the relationships that we have with one another, with other people, it's 99% of it doesn't take place in the external reality of us like shaking hands or like physically being there, but rather it's also in between our ears.
mm,
Right. So um I think being aware of what your relationship is with yourself first and foremost, and then mending that, um it's so powerful, right? It's like it can't be understated. So
yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
man.
And so you started hitting the gym and you started taking care of yourself. And how did that turn into a career for you?
Yeah, so so when I first got into working out, I was lifting along with two of my buddies that got started like 3 and 6 months before I did, and I was just like lifting out of ego at the time.
Mm,
Just trying my best. It was the upside was that because I was trying to lift out of ego, I was trying to catch up with them. I just pushed 100%, 110% intensity. Like 30 minutes in, I'd be gassed, and they'd be like, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" I was like, I don't know, man. But coming out of that, I put on 12 pounds within 3 weeks. And I went from 134 to 146. And I have a pretty lean physique, right? So a lean frame. So when I put muscle mass on, like people can tell. So I remember like when my friends started complimenting it, and I was like, oh, this is working. I was like, this is nuts.
mm,
So that gave a huge boost of self-confidence, right? Going into college. And going to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do, like zero clue. Um, but for me, I didn't know that's like I was the first 2 years I was actually undecided, right? I didn't know what to study, and I was just like a little bit aimless. I didn't know what is it that I want to do. I know when I look within, and I was like, well, fitness, that's number one thing, right? I want to learn more about nutrition. I want to dive deeper into it. I want to study it. So I started learning about kinesiology and nutrition, and also like public health, so on and so forth. And I also knew that for me, I love communication. Right? It's like I love understanding people and learning about people. So I dug deeper into psychology, and I also started warming up to this idea of business itself. I was like, well, like I want to learn what marketing is, what management is, right? It's like all these things. So coming out of the second year, I actually built my own major. I called it health marketing and entrepreneurship, and that ironically actually is exactly what I'm doing right now, like today. At the time, I just didn't know it. The courses I was taking weren't helpful, I'll be honest,
right.
besides the fundamental ones, but like it just really wasn't helpful, right, from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but
so
for me,
you were able to eventually kind of find your footing in this. And so tell us a little bit about the business that you're running now and who does it serve? Who's a good kind of candidate to interact with you, and why would somebody engage with this business?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's so fast forward to after I graduated college, I had always wanted to take a stab at starting something, right? It's like, so one day, one fateful evening, actually, I was on my phone. I came across a Facebook ad, right? Those perfectly spoke to me because I was doing research at the time. I was like,
Yeah.
huh, I want to start a business. And it came from this couple that was teaching people how to start their Facebook ad agency, right? So it's a lead generation agency for local business owners. So I clicked into it. I had just graduated from college. I had zero skills really, and zero value to give to any market. I just wanted to learn, and I had a job lined up way advanced. But I followed through the video that I saw. I jumped on a call, ended up jumping into this program. I dropped like 6 grand along with one of my buddies to just learn Facebook marketing for local business owners. As soon as I jumped in, I was like, whoa, obviously I'm going to help gym owners, right? Because if I can help gym owners, I can help more Georges at the age of 18, right? And I was like, okay, cool, let's do this. But then, so that was 4 years ago. Next thing I know, I just pretty much jumped on this entire roller coaster ride of starting a business and what that means, and getting punched in the face, and learning and growing, right? It's like,
Don't forget about the face punch. That's essential.
oh, it was face punch
passage.
Yeah, it was face punch, gut punch, all of it. And sometimes it doesn't stop as you just get better at taking punches, right? It's like,
That's
or
right.
maybe at some point you perceive it as no longer being punches. But yeah, I think for me, I mean, what has always stuck was I wanted to serve gym owners, especially after the first handful of gym owners I served. I realized the story that I actually shared with you in terms of how I got into health and fitness, coming from like a place of isolation or a place of darkness or pain. A lot of gym owners, they have that exact story, and it was remarkably powerful. And a lot of them just got into the space not because they want to make $1 gazillion, right? It's like, naturally that's good as well, but most importantly, they actually wanted to get into the business to help people, right? It's like they get that satisfaction when they see someone accomplishing something they were never able to do before. And for me, that always really stuck with me because I'm not very money motivated. However, I'm very people motivated, right? It's like I'm extremely driven when it comes to a cause. So for me, despite COVID and all those ups and downs, I stuck with serving gym owners. And then over the past 4 years, we just learned a lot. I mean, we help mainly gym owners that provide group fitness or semi-private training or even personal training. We, in terms of what we do, is that we just help them become more profitable because most gyms, they have a good product, and it's evident from the little number of people that leave their gym every month. Because if you just look at their membership base, not a lot of people leave besides they get injured or they move, or let's say the wife gets pregnant or what it may be, right? It's like, but what's missing, one of the things that's missing is that people don't know about them, right? It's like if they were to walk around their gym within a 3 or 5 mile or 7 mile radius, hunt down 100 people, hey, have you heard of my gym? Like they haven't heard of it, you know? So we start there. We put together an offer. What we normally put out is a 12-week program, right, for our clients for them to push out into the market. And then we actually build out this entire system that has automations built in that teaches our clients on how to get people in the door. And then we also guide them through on how to develop a sales process that works, so you can have a conversation with someone once they get in through the door. We actually teach them how to sell high ticket because most gym owners also charging too low. And that's evident from unfortunately the money in their bank, and also the revenue, right? Like that they hit, because a lot of them jump into this space not as like business gurus or like marketing or sales gurus, but because they
just want to help people create that transformation. Just like you were saying earlier, they're not necessarily, I'm going to make $1 million at this. I just want to make an honest living.
100%.
And so helping with gym owners. And so if somebody is a fitness instructor or a gym owner, where can they go to engage with you?
It's a good question. So if they go to www.gympillars.com, it's we have a landing page that's actually there. It's they can shoot me a DM on Instagram. That's George L1022. That works as well. Yeah, those the two places. Yeah.
Gympillars.com.
Yeah.
All right.
GYMPILLARS.
Awesome. George Liu, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate, and we spent like 90% of this talking about some like super deep emotional trauma and baggage and stuff, and I loved it. So if you're looking to connect with George, you can go to gympillars.com. And one more time, George, with your Instagram.
George L 1022.
George L 1022 on Instagram. Very good. Thank you so much again to George Liu, named after George Washington, for coming on here and sharing all of your nuggets of wisdom. Really appreciate you, man. For those of you who are interested in engaging with him further, you can go to gympillars.com, especially if you are a fitness pro or a gym owner. Once again, if you want to keep hearing great content like this, be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple or Spotify. And don't forget to get your own personal DoZone DNA by visiting dozonedna.com. Until next time, remember, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. What are you going to do with yours?